You got big dreams and bad genes, you're in the right place. These shirts and others are available at barbellapparel.com. Link in the description. So I was writing a script for a video that I was going to do about one particular topic. I was going to niche down a lot. It was going to be kind of philosophical, and I really wanted to flesh out this one idea. But you know me, it gets wordy. I get a little bit up my own ass. I start adding on these like extra branches, and it turns into like this tangled like driftwood piece of just monstrosity that I was going to offer up to you like a dog, the way they offer up a dead bird as a gift. And I thought, instead of doing that, maybe I disentangle it a little bit, make it a list, just run through it quickly, give the summary, and you guys will be better off for having the information. And I can take any one of those and give it a little more attention in a deeper video in the future. So that's what I opted to do. So here we are. This is, in no particular order, a top 10 list of vital lessons I learned. I found these all to be vital for strength training, but a lot of them also vital in life as well. We'll draw some parallels there. You know that I'm always trying to be that grandfather that buys you ice cream, but also yells at you to pull your pants up. So here we go. The first thing is, if you don't use it, you lose it. I want to start the first 2 points with expectations about how gains come, what it takes to keep them around, how easily you lose them, and how easily they come back, because that's going to frame your expectations. A lot of the bad results that come from training are from people applying instinct. And especially if you don't have years of experience fueling that instinct and that intuition, you end up just reacting, making a lot of bad decisions. So the first thing to know is, yes, if you stop training, you will decondition, you will backslide. However, that is not necessarily a bad thing. For one, there's a lot of different qualities that make up a complete, whether it's a physique or a performance package. There's a lot of different elements, and they don't always all stay topped out the same way. So the fact that they decondition, that actually works to your benefit. When you get into more advanced modes of training, it will involve this kind of ebb and flow of working on a few things, then hitting this new height and then dropping back a little bit, and then going and working on something else. And you kind of cycle things, you keep them in flux, but that keeps you sensitive to the training stimulus. So it's a really important thing to know. One of my favorite books that I've read, I mean, it's specifically about management, but it bleeds over to a lot of other stuff. Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's really good for talking about negotiating, relationships, dealing with people. One of the important tools there is sharpen the saw. It's the idea that you always have to come back to the systems you have in place, the relationships you have, and you have to pay maintenance to them. You have to give them attention. And it's the same with your training. So the important thing to take away from this is that, yeah, you have to train consistently to stack together concentrated runs of training in order to grow. That's something you need to prove yourself capable of doing. But also, as time goes on into the future, you need to stay on top of it in some capacity, or you will detrain. Now, that brings us directly to point number 2, which is that maintenance is easy and comebacks are stupidly quick. This is the most empowering thing I realized when I had my first meltdown. I was in my teens and I was scrounging for every ounce I put on the bar. And the first time I went through a phase where I thought, hey, I deadlift 455. I'm just going to deadlift 455 every day until the day I die. This is just how muscular and strong I am now. Then I decided to try to get lean because I was an insecure, kind of fat teenager. So I ate 300 calories a day, nothing but granola bars, did 2-a-days for football, and ran 10 miles a day. The results for my max bench, squat, and deadlift were not stellar. I lost probably 25% strength over 6 weeks, and I was absolutely devastated. Like, I want to hang this up, never do it again type devastated. Once I realized that, holy crap, once I started eating and training again, that 6 or 8 years worth of progress came back in like 5 or 6 weeks. I'm actually doing a video on the Colorado experiment right now, which is one of the most notorious fraudulent marketing schemes that has ever been put together. And the whole thing hinged on taking an elite bodybuilder, having them drop a bunch of weight, and then build it back up over the course of the month, and then credit all that muscle growth to the efficacy of the system they were using. It was absolute BS. But the important thing to know is that you can do a little bit, 1 touch, 2 touches a week for extended periods of time to maintain your gains. And even if you do lose your gains, you get an injury, you get disillusioned, something happens, you have to come back after many months off, it comes back so fast. I use that to my benefit through the competitive year because I get burnt out lifting maximum loads year round. There's times where my psychology is burnt. There's times where I feel hurt, injured, inflamed, and knowing that at any point I can take a substantial amount of time off, take a few steps back, I know that when I come back, I'm just going to run forward like crazy. So it's a very empowering thing. So stop reacting and start planning, knowing that this ebb and flow is very normal. It's something you should use to your advantage. Number 3, Stubbornness wins. I'm the living embodiment of that. I've said repeatedly, I do not have fantastic genetics. My leverages suck. You can ask my football coaches. I rode the bench for 3 years in high school. I'm not athletic. I'm not fast. I don't have good kinesthetic ability. And I would say I actually don't gain strength that fast. I wasn't really considered strong until I had been strength training for about 6 years, like crazy. And I mean like crazy. Most people look at their first couple of years and they're like, oh, I'm not growing. I'm not like the guys on IG. When I started, I trained because I loved it. And I was stubborn. I didn't care about, I was motivated. I wanted to get these goals, but I loved being in the gym. I was in there 3 hours a day, 5-6 days a week, probably doing too much, but learning how everything works, learning how my body responds, getting down every exercise I could do. And that absolutely set me up for success down the road. And in the face of a lot of losses, in the face of some really big setbacks, I never would allow myself to stop because I'm stubborn. I knew this was something I could come back to. Every event I sucked at, I resolved to get better at because I was not satisfied saying that that's just something I can't do. I was motivated. And that's one of the reasons I have a love-hate relationship with strongman, because I absolutely hate most of the events because I came in sucking at most of them. So it's almost like this bitter, vindictive comeback where I trained it into the ground long enough to where I was actually pretty good. Long story short, stubbornness wins. If you want to do something, if you love to do it, focus on that aspect of it, because committing to the consistency, being able to sit down, take your time, piece it out because you actually enjoy it, infinitely more productive than hyper-fixating on a goal that's way off in the distance that you may or may not commit to, that sounds good now, but after a couple of years and results aren't stellar, am I really going to be around? The process is the important part. Orient yourself to the process, learn to love it, be stubborn, don't take no for an answer. Number 4 kind of ties into number 3, and that is that the enjoyment is more important than the goal. And I mean this. Goals are extraordinarily important. If you don't have something that you're actively chasing, you're not going to have structure. You're not going to take it as seriously. You're going to kind of count everything you do as a right answer. And that's fine for exercise. If we're just talking about being active on a regular basis and jumping around from different modalities to stay stimulated, nothing wrong with that. You'll be healthier. You'll be leaner. You'll still be more useful than if you sat on the couch. But if you're training and you want to get as much out of your training as you can, you need a goal. Now you got to pick one because it's going to seem like there's unlimited opportunities in front of you, and you don't want to concern yourself with the infinite multiverse of your possible futures. Everything you do comes at the cost of everything else you could have done. It goes back to the paradox of choice, which is absolutely infuriating, right? That more choices actually make you worse off. Pick a goal. Don't try to do everything. Pick something that you enjoy. Figure out how to master that thing. You can go an inch wide and a mile deep. That might involve some specialization, might also involve dropping back and kind of working around the periphery, widening out your base, figuring out just top to bottom, inside and out how this thing works. If it's strength, then chase that. If it's size and aesthetics, then chase that. If it's just learning how to manipulate your body weight, chase that. But you have to find something that you enjoy, because nobody reaches lofty goals just because they were motivated on the goal. I mean, you're looking at Soviet era athletes, people in communist countries living on a compound because that was their life, to be a lifter, because that was going to be the thing that got them out of poverty. That's nobody's experience in the United States or in the Western world or wherever you might be watching this now. So find something you love, commit to it, and that is going to take you to the heights, not the arbitrary chasing of the particular goal. Are you looking for access to exclusive programs from the best minds in the field and some of your favorite YouTube influencers? Then look no further than Boostcamp. Boostcamp is a long-term sponsor of this channel, and I wouldn't be partnered with them if they didn't provide a great product. If you want optimal performance, you cannot just wing your weight selection. You have to make deliberate steps forward. So you need a program, and you need a way to track progress on it. They make it easy to track your workouts from the convenience of your phone, so you never have to rely on your sloppy handwriting or your bad memory. And they give you access to a library of exclusive programs from some of the most well-known names in the business. Eric Helms, Bryce Lewis, Jeff Schofield, Bald Omni-Man, and yours truly. We all have programs up there that can only be found on the app, and it is absolutely free. My programs, Bull Mastiff and 70s Powerlifter, are both up there. And you can also check out Full Sturker, which tells you how to get strongman jacked using the things you find in a corporate gym. So special thank you to Boostcamp for making this channel possible. Unburden yourself from the hard business of making the perfect program from scratch. We've got them pre-made for you. Download their app right now by clicking the link in the description. Number 5, this is a hard one. You're never going to be the top guy. Now, I know after saying this, there's 0.01% of you watching this that will be the top guy, and I'm probably going to get some angry "I told you so" letters in a couple years, but I service the majority, not the very fringe few. So most of you need to get right with the fact that you're not going to be the top guy. The top guys that you see, even if you're in the business of finding different pools to swim around in where you look like the top guy, you're likely not going to fill out that particular weight class, set that particular record. It's out of reach for most people. Now, that's not bad news. If anything, again, that should be empowering. That should let you know that you can train for enjoyment. You can figure out how your body works and focus on getting the most out of your capabilities. Goals are great to chase, especially I'm all for comparing yourself to other people. Some people look at that as kind of a taboo. I think it's great to chase heights that are even unattainable. But if you have everything wrapped up in this kind of fantasy, like I'm either going to be the next Mr. Olympia or I'm going to be nothing, that's a toxic view that's going to set you up for failure. And I know so many people that drop out. The first people to drop out that come in just like a wrecking ball, and a year later, you're like, what happened to so-and-so? It's like they were a novice, but they were talking about how they were going to Worlds in 2 years. Those are the people that came in with unrealistic goals, and they got really, really bothered when it didn't go off the way they wanted it to. Don't be that guy. Look to have a healthy attachment to the things you do. Learn how to get as much as possible out of it. The value of lifting is not chasing records. It's cool to talk about. It's what drives all of us. The value of lifting is what it does to your life as a human being, as somebody who is a father, mother, son, daughter, somebody who has a utility. Your community needs you. The people around you need you. You have to be useful, responsible. You have to be around for a long time. Everything that makes you a more efficient machine and teaches you how to delay gratification, how to do hard shit, is going to make your entire community better. And it's also going to regulate your emotions and have you have an easier time about it. It's going to make a better quality life for you. So again, you're not going to be the top guy. That's not what this is about. You should still be going out and killing it top to bottom. Get in there and get after it. Number 6, don't look down. And when I say that, I don't mean like you're climbing to the top of the mountain and just keep going, brother. Don't look down. I mean, don't look down. Like, don't focus on people that are like beneath you. This is kind of a paradox of competitiveness that is a pain in the ass. And I'm here to tell you, if you ever are around long enough to make big sweeping gains, there's a part of it that's unsatisfactory because you're never going to actually feel like a winner, because it's bad sportsmanship. And I think it's bad for you to really fixate on the people that you're already better than. And that means that you're never actually the top guy because you're always focused up towards the better people. You're always at the bottom of the totem pole as far as your perspective is concerned. It's just like dealing with bullies. You know, if you want to be the guy who's bigger and stronger so you don't get sand kicked in your face, once you get to that point and you encounter people that are like smaller or like insecure, they're little chihuahuas nipping at your heels, you absolutely can't use like whatever brute force you have to deal with that. Like your hands are tied. So you acquired all this size and strength or skill or ability or whatever, but you're like obligated to restrain yourself in those situations. Anyways, it's important. It's important that you are a warrior in a garden, so to speak. But this really comes around when you see people who are competitive, or even if they're just comparing themselves at the gym, they spend a lot of time trying to boost themselves up by looking at the small fries. And it's a really bad look. It's not good for you. Your focus should always be up. It should always be on the next goal you have, the thing that's going to elevate you. There's a good example I knew really well, a guy who was a really big dude. He was well over 300 pounds. He was a pretty good lifter. He got very strong very fast. And this was a guy whose talents couldn't really shine through because he was always trying to pad his ego and patch his insecurities by comparing himself to people that were a notch below him. Like, he was a really big guy, did very well in the heavyweights, but he was continuously kind of putting himself side by side guys in the lower weight classes. He's a guy that if he was standing around and somebody was lifting a PR, he would kind of turn his head to the side and be like, yeah, that's what I work out with. It's that type of thing. And it puts a bad taste in your mouth. Nobody likes being around that guy. And again, it's bad sportsmanship. It's not good or healthy for your psychology. You have to learn how to take on the role that comes with improvement. As you elevate up that hierarchy, you now are almost obligated to kind of have the affectation to wear that mantle of almost a manager type position, right? You have to be the guy that's a little bit better than it. You have to be the role model for everybody beneath you. So don't look down, keep your sights focused up Understand there's going to be an unsatisfying element to that. You're going to have to be okay letting other people have their due. And that has a ton to do with the way you interpret competition, has a ton to do with how you set your sights on goals moving forward. But that's a path. That's how you create a reputation. That's how you make yourself a role model. So keep those eyes pointed up. Number 7, don't worry about what other people are doing. Now, this is a hard one because I talk about having goals and comparing yourself to the people that you're trying to chase, even if they're like way outside your wheelhouse. But the thing is, you have to really be good at having your plan that's motivated by what you want and what you are oriented towards, and not, again, reacting. A big piece of being a good trainer, a good lifter long term, is knowing how to run the system based on reality, what you can realistically predict, and not just reacting to things as they come up. And a big part of that is when you see either your friends, could be people you know, could be a rivalry, it could be somebody that you chase who you're following, who you end up basing your training off of what they're doing. If they're changing, doing other things, if they're making a run towards a particular goal and you're trying to follow them to whatever heights. I suffered from this a lot when I was competing, where I would spend too much time focusing on other lifters because I would stalk them. Like 4 months out from a big show, I'm looking for them on Instagram. I'm finding their like defunct MySpace pages. I'm tracking them down on their like placings on the Federation website to see how they did in a contest 5 years ago. I spent a lot of time worrying about the competition, and that can absolutely throw a wrench in the gears. It's good to network, it's good to learn from other people, but ultimately what you do in your training should be focused on you and what you need to do to bridge the gap from where you are now to where you think you could be in the reasonable future. That's what all good training is going to come down to. So don't let yourself be influenced by your friend group. If they want to jump in and do something different that day, know that you have a plan, stick to your plan. If they want to pull you out to do something else, if it's like, well, we were interested in this back then, but now we're focused on aesthetics or whatever it might be, your plan should be wrapped up in what you want to do. And all of that should be fleshed out in one particular cohesive principle-based approach. So try not to be heavily influenced. Number 8, competitive experience is absolutely invaluable, even if you are not a competitor. When you sign up for a competition, something's on the line. At the very least, you can learn the difference between casual recreational training and training when there is skin in the game, when people are going to watch how you do, when people that love and support you are tracking your progress, people that you feel like you're going to let down if you half-ass the prep because, your mom and your cousins and your grandma, she's going to be wheeled in a wheelchair into a high school gymnasium to watch you in a powerlifting meet for 9.5 hours so they can see thousands of squat benches and deadlifts in anticipation of your lift. When you do something like that, it just reframes it. So if you haven't competed before, it adds something to your prep. It teaches you how to work on a deadline. More importantly, it teaches you to interact with other people. So the timing and pacing of your training towards a specific end, if you've never signed up for a contest, there is nothing like that. It will change the way that you evaluate your training, and it will actually make you like deadly efficient once you get good at it. And on the other end, as far as talking to people, learning, if you go to contests, people are so friendly everywhere. People are so universally helpful. The people that show up in run shows, whether it's a powerlifting meet, whether it's bodybuilding, whether it's strongman, Highland Games, arm wrestling, doesn't matter. These are people that live and breathe the sport. Their favorite thing to do is to talk about what they know. So you're going to get such huge information dumped on you. You're also going to get some behind the scene gossip, which I'm all about. I love hearing about people's positive and negative experiences with well-known figures. You feel initiated when you go in and people start shooting the shit about, oh yeah, that guy, well, he did well at the Arnold, but what a piece of shit, or whatever it is. I mean, I'm extremely petty, but I love that. But talking to other people really inserts you into the community, and you just learn so much from it. So I'm a big fan of telling people, compete at least once. Worst case scenario, you have some takeaways and you can go back to your training. Best case scenario, it could quite literally change the way that you approach your training, and it could bring you into becoming a long-term competitive athlete. That's pretty cool. That brings us to number 9, which is that networking is infinitely more important than winning. Networking is absolutely huge. I mean, the amount of wisdom that exists, if you go to a meet and you absolutely botch it, your heart's going to be beating 180 beats per minute. Your blood pressure is going to be like 200 over 130. You'll be so angry, filled with anxiety, so frustrated, you'll be about to stroke out on the floor. The worst meet that you've ever done is still better than if you never did the meet at all. And the experience and the people you meet and the ability to talk to and learn from those experiences, 100% the best thing you can possibly do. The ability to network in these sports is very unique. This is one of the rare fields, well, now more and more with social media, it's becoming easier, but this is one of the rare fields where you can get in touch like today with the highest achieving people in the field, with the greatest minds, the most sought after athletes, coaches, content creators. It's so easy to get in touch with people if you really want to. And one of the easiest ways, go to a meet, go shake their hand, introduce yourself. You'll be surprised at what bits of information that people will give up in casual conversation. You'll be surprised how receptive people are to having their brains picked. Networking is such a crucial opportunity. And you don't have to compete to do that either. You go to an expo, go to somewhere where these guys show up. They show up at events all the time. Go hang out at an amateur show and talk to people. You'll be amazed at how easy it is to network. And if you train at a corporate gym, again, it's going to reframe your perspective with how this community is put together and the types of things that you can learn and the ways that you can change. Number 10, bite off more than you can chew. Full stop. This kind of goes back to not looking down, keeping those eyeballs set upwards. Always, 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 if you have the opportunity, if it's not going to be like an absolute bloodbath, it's one thing if you sign up for a strongman meet and everything is literally a zero, like you don't really learn a lot from that. But wherever you have the option to go down a notch or to go up, do not take the lower option. If going up a notch is a bit harder, but it's still within reach and you're worried about the placing, you chicken shit it out by going down. If you compete up, you will have higher expectations. Your growth going into that show will be better. You'll enjoy yourself more because the shows and competitions you do where you do bite off more than you can chew, where there are no expectations, those are going to be like the ones where you don't expect anything of yourself. So you can just relax, you go perform. Every single time I've competed as a heavyweight, not only have I beat my expectations, but I've enjoyed myself exponentially more. And I've been in probably a dozen shows as a heavyweight. Every single show where I've had to go through a grueling cut where I've been very close to the competition and where I held myself to a standard of winning, I was much more anxious, I underperformed, I screwed up, and I have a long run of actually whiffing in contests for that exact reason. So as a learning experience, especially in those formative years, competing up is one of the best things you can do. As you get more competitive and you have big goals that you want to take down, if it's a state or national record, if it's an invite to a much bigger competition, you can start chipping away at those. But those come after you've paid your dues. And while you're paying your dues, you should be looking to make big leaps. You should be holding yourself to higher standards. So those are the 10 valuable training bits of wisdom that I have for you today. There's obviously so many more that I can give, and I am going to give them in the future, but just dwell on these. I think a lot about the nature of competition, how we view ourselves, and how that molds what we get out of training, how it improves our life, but also how it's oriented towards like keeping us involved and moving forward. This is all very important to get right. And again, I think these are the important things about training and lifting culture in general, not simply the fact that you put 2 inches on your arm or that you bench press 50 pounds more. So let me know what you guys think. Do you have any thoughts on any one of these? Anything that you struggled with that you feel like was addressed here? Go ahead and leave it in the comments. Better yet, take it to Patreon. That is the easiest way to get in contact with me. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Till next time, this is Bromley. I'll see you.